So what is this? I thought this was kind of interesting. Archaeologists keep finding massive shoes at an ancient Roman fort. They had no idea why they're so big. Discovered near Hadrian's Wall in northern England, the oversized leather footwear has left researchers puzzled. You know, guys, I think this will probably disappear off the internet as soon as the something ending with an N and starting with an S finds out about it. Oh, they'll quietly pay for all this to disappear. July 28th, it was yesterday, well, 2 days ago. Sarakuta. Daily Correspondent. Pretty big. Roughly a quarter of all the shoes found at the Magna are longer than 11.8 inches. When archaeologists unearth ancient shoes, the artifacts are usually about the same size as the footwear we use today. However, during recent excavations in northern England, researchers were surprised to find several massive leather shoes that are much larger than usual, and they have no idea why they're so big. Couldn't possibly be like a bunch of giants or something, right? Because that would be a conspiracy. The supersized footwear comes from a Roman-era fort called Magna, which is located along Hadrian's Wall. The 73-mile stone fortification built beginning in 122 CE that marked the northwest boundary of the Roman Empire, also known as Carvorin. The fort was operational from 885 CE to 122 CE, according to the Roman Army Museum. Since May, archaeologists working at Magna have unearthed 8 massive leather shoes that each measured more than 11.8 inches long. The extra long specimens now make up roughly a quarter of all the shoes found at the site. So far, researchers discovered the first huge shoe while exploring a defensive ditch where Roman soldiers were also known to dump their trash. That shoe sole was 12.6 inches long, which is roughly the same as a men's number 14 in the United States. That is pretty big. Archaeologists kept digging and found another 33 shoes of varying sizes, including some that appear to have been made for children. The longest shoe they found measures 12.8 inches. The soles are all made from thick sheets of cowhide leather that are held together by iron hobnails. Reports CNN something Cimmerian Greaser. The shoes have been preserved for nearly 2,000 years because of the low oxygen conditions of the soil in the region. Researchers don't know why some of the footwear at Magna is so large. They're also unearthed thousands of shoes at the nearby Roman fort of Vindolanda, but most of these were normal in size. Of the 3,704 measurable shoes discovered at that one, just 16 of them, or 0.4%, were larger than 11.8 inches per Live Science. For comparison, 25% of the shoes found have been more than 11.8. The giant Magna shoes will probably shrink a little during the conservation process, but even if they lose 0.4 inches of length, which archaeologists say is standard, they're still gigantic. Wow, look at the top of that. That's crazy. 2,000-year-old shoe. Holy moly. This is really cool, guys. Well, let's read the rest of it. There's not a lot. We have to assume that's something to do with the people living here having bigger feet, being potentially taller, but we don't know, says Rachel Frame, the archaeologist leading the excavations at Magna. BBC's Jason Aaron, and he has a weird last name, Murugesu or something, are the people living there from a specific region? Could that be why their shoes are so much bigger? But at the moment, it's sort of, well, this is unusual. There might be other possible explanations, according to Tim Penn, an archaeologist at the University of Reading, who is not involved with the project. Maybe the massive shoes were worn by soldiers with swollen feet or other injuries. They required them to wear medical dressings. That's what I was first thinking, actually. Alternatively, perhaps the shoes were winter boots that were meant to be worn with several pairs of socks or some kind of insulation. This theory, Penn writes, is supported by a preserved letter that refers to socks and underpants being sent to a soldier stationed here. Historians also know that archers from Syria lived at Magna, and it's safe to assume that these men would have not been accustomed to the cold climate of northern England, he adds. Speaking to Agence France Presse, Frame also emphasizes that individuals from different parts of the world were likely living and working at Magna 2 millennia ago. When people think about the Romans, they think about Italians, Frame tells AFP. They sometimes forget just how broad the empire was and how far it stretched. To figure out who is wearing the large footage, researchers plan to study the wear patterns and foot impressions left behind in the shoes. These insights could help them work back to model the feet of the original wearers. They also plan to date the pottery and artifacts found at Magna to understand the site's timeline, as well as who may have been living there at various points in history. In the meantime, the shoes serve as a reminder that not every population was the same. The wide variation between regiments and people who served along Hadrian's Wall could be cultural and physical, says Andrew Burley, CEO and Director of Excavations of the Vindolanda Trust, the organization that oversees Magna and Vindolanda, in a statement. Anyway, can we only celebrate and marvel at the diversity and differences of these people if we can still see them in an archaeological data we gather today, he adds. Well, we can only celebrate and marvel at the diversity and differences of these people. Yeah, pretty cool. Anyway, dang. I mean, that's just huge. But who knows?